Alright, last game here. So I do know, based on what he told me about this replay, is that this objective gets stalled until level 20. So this is a stall game for us. So that's pretty exciting. Alright, so we've got Liming, Zarya, Samuro, Murden, Alexstrasza. They don't have a global, although Samuro is kind of a pseudo-global, almost. So I would say I like this draft pretty well. Liming is decent. It's a little bit like Liming's kind of a worse Chromie on this map because her skill shots, you have so much room that it's so easy to dodge them. So she's kind of like a win more hero. But on the other hand, they do have a decent bit of lockdown with Muradin and Zarya, depending if she goes Repulsion or the Gravity Lapse. If she goes Gravity Lapse, obviously that's better for Liming to combo in. Liming's just okay. I think Chromie would probably be better, but this is fine. Zarya is really good at fighting over the objectives. Samuro can take the camp. Yeah, solid draft, I would say, aside from not really having a double soaker or a global, but Samuro is like passable. On the red team here, we've got Falstad, so he's definitely your global. Urel is definitely your solo lane, aside from Falstad. Tracer has the soul damage with Stukov is a little bit iffy. Like, I would maybe want to have, like, Malfurion here. And then Varian, again, also a little bit iffy. It's going to be hard for him to really get on top of anybody. And especially when you already have Urel Falstad as your solo lanes, like, I don't think you need... Like, as a frontline, you would prefer somebody else, basically, is what I'm saying. But, who would be really good here is the question. Like, Tyrael would probably be really good. Anubarak would be pretty good. So, anyway, let's take a look. I'm not sure whether Falstad is going to go Bribe or not, because with, like, Varian, Tracer, Falstad, and Urel to an extent, they can just take the camp without Bribe, as some combination of, like, 2 or 3 heroes on it. So, it looks like he's not going to... This is definitely not the quest to take, though. You definitely should go Seasoned Marksman on this map, because this is, like, the 4-person rotate talent, and you're definitely a solo lane hero on this map as Falstad. So, yep, they're splitting up the lanes correctly by sending Urel in one and Falstad in the other. It looks like they haven't shown on the map where the objective is going to be yet. You would definitely have Samuro in one lane. I guess Zarya in the other lane is probably correct. Yep, that seems like it makes sense to me so far. So, okay, the camp, the objective is top, not the camp. So having Falstad bottom is actually working out pretty well, because that's where you'll want him. Otherwise, you would have had to swap Urel and Falstad at some point. And basically what you would do is to do that, you would have mid push and clear their wave as fast as possible, and then rotate down to the Falstad. You would then have Urel come down, and at that point you would have Falstad also fast push his lane, and then recall and then go top lane after Urel fast pushes as well. So that basically you would fast push all 3 lanes so that you could rotate between them, and you would do like a full like musical chair like shifting, where you just like move everybody across one lane, and Falstad like rounds over to the top from bottom, and you would just shift everybody down a lane. And then after the 4-man clears bottom and Urel clears a wave middle, then just them would switch from bottom to mid, and then you would have Urel down here, your 4-lane. I mean, Urel could basically just merge with the 4-man at that point and just rotate mid-bottom and keep Falstad up top if the objective was bottom. But again, instead they can do the opposite. They can keep the lanes where they are. But anyway, that's how you would do that if that situation came up, which, I mean, it's a 50-50, so... alternatively, if you didn't really, like, want to do that whole mess, and maybe, like, the other team has better wave clear than you, and you aren't sure that you can do that without losing experience, is you could just start as a full 4-man rotate with the Falstad, and then just clear mid and side wave, mid, side wave, mid, side wave, and then at that point, when you figure out like which side the objective is going to be on, then you can figure out which, like, how to split the Falstad off to go in the far side wave from the objective. So you can do it either way. It just kind of depends on the drafts and how much team coordination you have and things like that. Okay, so sending Tracer down here for a gank on the Zarya, like, there's realistically, I think, very little chance that you kill this Zarya, but even if you do, I still think getting the camp is more important. So I think Tracer should go with Varian to get this camp right now. Because she's really not accomplishing much of anything here. And so if they had gotten the camp by this point, like a lot sooner, then they could defend this other camp easier, but instead now they're having to peel her off to go take the camp anyway. And then this camp is alive undefended for longer, so it gets more of the structures. So yeah, that was just bad time to rotate on Tracer, not playing that correctly, I would say. How's Urel doing? Urel's doing fine, because she's Urel. She can't lose. It's basically impossible to push out of lane. So now they have their camp pushing middle. So the problem is, like, their main wave clear is Zarya, and currently she's being stuck bottom to match the Falstad. And Li Ming can't really clear this very easily. And Samuro is top lane, and you can basically, as the red team, just prevent the Samuro from rotating down here. Like, that was, you gave it to him for free. You really shouldn't have done that. Varian is accomplishing nothing right here. Like, you can just position, like, up here aggressively, basically. And you can have your rel kind of, like, fast push and then rotate down to make sure that nobody's camping it, or capturing the objective. Alright, so this is a tough call, but here they're going to push the structures instead of getting this camp for a second time. I think this is correct, but I think you could also split off one hero to go get the camp at this point, like just Varian or just Tracer, depending on who could take the camp easier, you think? I would probably say Varian. This is like, they don't really accomplish that much. Okay, they are kind of doing that, so that's fine. So I think blue team could have gotten a capture on this. Like, they're going for the bush to try and catch someone, but Tracer is really easy to get out. Stukov shouldn't be face checking in the first place. Urel is easy to get out, and Varian can probably protect himself and get out too. So I think this is a wrong call on blue team. I think they should have pressured this and forced the rotate, and then that would have gotten their camp probably more undefended time middle, and it maybe would have peeled off the Varian from the camp. But instead they're trying to kill people that shouldn't ever die. I really don't understand why they're face checking this bush over and over when they can just really safely just rotate around this way and check if people are on the objective. So they got the Falstad to come in, which is pretty big. So now as red team, like, you have the global advantage. So as soon as you push them off of this, you can immediately send Falstad bottom again, and you will either like, wait out the global and just gain experience that way by their defending or whatever, or you can then wait for the global cooldown and then have Falstad fly in as a 5v4 once you're level 10 and get the objective that way, I think. So Falstad shouldn't be middle at this point. He should have gone bottom a long time ago. Again, I don't really see what Tracer and Stukov are accomplishing here. Tracer should definitely have been helping this camp. Like, this camp probably should have gotten taken, and it isn't. And, like, you can let this push in. Like, this is totally fine to just let it crash and then soak it. It's really easy. See, they're getting the camp, and you're not. And that's a big problem. And Tracer definitely did need to go up here to help this. So Falstad is going middle again for some reason. I don't know if he lost experience bottom. I wasn't paying that close attention, but he can just stay bottom. So he's forcing two people down here. So now is the time where the team should... Yeah, they just got the camp. Enemy red team should be pushing top at this point. Especially because you see two people middle. Like, you would have a 4-on-1 top lane. That would be the prime time to push it. I don't know why Tracer is coming bottom. There's, like, she's accomplishing actually nothing. Tracer's a hero where you really need to be, like, pressuring your enemies at all points. You can't just be wasting time with Tracer. Tracer's also not that great on this map is the problem, because she's a very late game scaling hero, despite what people seem to think, because she gets her ult at level 1, but her ult scales at like 6% or something ridiculous, and so the damage from it is actually not that, like, it's a basic ability early game. It's just like, it's meh. It doesn't really do that much. But late game, when she gets like untouchable stacks, and she gets lock and load, and she gets ricochet, and her quantum spike at level 10, and then she gets like 6% scaling on the pulse bomb damage on top of that, and she can actually start like just chunking people and doing ridiculous amounts of damage. post like level 16, that's when Tracer's like good. So, yeah, she's not that great on this map because if you're playing the map correctly, like you can pretty much have won the game by level 16. And so if you're trying to play a stall game, which I would say the blue team is more so than the red team, then Tracer's kind of fine because you can, and same with Zeratul, who has the same problem of his power spike being at 16, which is like the game is mostly over at that point, if generally. So I think red has missed out on a lot of pressure this game. Like Tracer's bottom again for no reason. Like she might get a kill on Zarya, but again, you're like, okay, you're getting a kill, and then you're having to waste all this time rotating back up to try and win the objective. Whereas if you had just been top and put pressure on top, then you would win the objective. And like that's so much less time wasted spent rotating down here, getting the kill, then rotating all the way back up and things like that. So red team is missing out on a lot of global like map pressure that they could have had this game, and so they could have had a lot more structure damage, both middle by getting the camp, and top lane by just rotating up and putting pressure, and that would have forced the rotates out of middle, which gets the camps more structure damage even better. And so I think they're really just misunderstanding that you can 4-man rotate mid-top with this, with your global bottom, when the objective is up. And then, I'm not sure they could have won the objective, but they definitely would, like, probably have, like, a decent damage on one, if not both of the forts at this point, and probably would be up 13, and then could, like, look to boss or something, or you know, press the advantage into getting a fort, because then the team is fighting down, like, a level or two and a talent tier at that point. So, I said red team had the better draft, but blue team is exploiting the fact that they're not really playing the map correctly. Although blue team, I think, is making some mistakes of their own, like sitting in this bush instead of going for the capture and things like that. So you've gotten Dragon. So at this point, I think you just want to stall as red team. Again, you have the global bottom pushing for you. They have 5 people middle, so you can honestly like give up this fort at this point, I think. Oh, Falstad didn't need to fly in. That was a mistake. He could have gotten a decent bit of pressure bottom. He would have a lot more pressure if he like went the other quest. Like, how much sex does he have on this? Let's see. 36? Yeah, that's not that great. So, yeah, I think if he had gone the other quest this game, he would have had a lot more siege potential bot lane. Siege pressure. So again, Tracer isn't really accomplishing anything by staying middle. Instead, you want to rotate for top pressure, then put pressure, then put pressure, then put pressure, instead of just like halfway putting like no pressure with Urel and like very little pressure with Tracer just permanently. Like, they can defend little pressure, but they can't defend big pressure. They got the camp again. So they're just, red team is like not understanding the camp tempo on this map. Falstad is rotating up again when he doesn't need to. They're missing out on like having a lot of advantage from that. Like, they should be up like 2 full levels at this point instead of only like a level and a half. Maybe even close to 3 levels actually, based on the structure damage that they're missing also. Okay, so I think they probably could have started this capture at some point earlier in this game. A lot easier. Okay, so that gets stalled to level 17, I would say. Not 20, but that was still a long stall, I will admit. I think it was mostly red team not putting the pressure that they could have to force the issue, basically, over the objective. They missed out on a lot of pressure, which would have let them force the issue, so... it wasn't really necessarily because blue team like stalled correctly or anything. So yep, they're pushing the correct side lane, especially with Falstad. You want to push both side lanes. Side lanes are way better than mid lane. Cavalier Guest got that completely wrong. Because not only is it easier to defend... I gotta mute the volume again. Or not mute it, but lower it. Because not only is the null camp easier to defend than the boss, but it just doesn't pressure core as hard as the boss. Or keeps as well. And it's just easier to defend side lanes if your mid is the one down, whereas if your top side lane is like top to bottom is like a further distance than mid to either side lane, right? And so now they just win, right? Because they got the first objective. Like literally, you win off the first objective. That's what I've been saying this whole time. So, yeah, I would say both of those games, and the third one that bugged out didn't really get full too much in-depth analysis on that or whatever. But I would say both of those games played out pretty much how I would expect based on how the map went and how both teams played the map and the drafts and things like that. So yeah, I'm not really like, I think I do still understand that map correctly and could pretty much predict how those games are going to go based on what team the drafts are and what team is taking the camps correctly and like pushing the lanes correctly and rotating correctly and things like that. I think if you do all those things correctly and you have the better draft, which is pretty much the important part, then you should be able to win the objective somehow or get map pressure by taking the structures if they're really dedicated to stalling it. And then at that point you can press your advantage and you should be able to secure the game from that point because the map is really, really, really snowbally. So, yep, thanks for sending me those replays. Those were fun to go over. It's good to see that like even when stalling happens, like it's not just because the team stalled and like stalling is OP on this map or anything. I think it's actually just because people are playing the map correctly that stalling sort of works in that sense. But once people like hopefully learn to draft and play the map better and like learn the importance of the camp, that will become less like effective against them sort of by like they're making it harder on themselves than they need to be essentially. So yeah, anyway, thanks.